Okay, so today we're talking about blood sugar balancing solutions. And as always, I'm going to go more high level, talk about what the issue is with what we see in the industry, and then, some solutions that are available in your Get Healthy store. So what I will say is if you don't have a Get Healthy store and you're just here because you saw us post this out, welcome. My name is Tracy Stroup. I'm the Chief Health and Growth Officer here at Get Healthy. And basically what I want to do today is just talk about all of the things blood sugar. So this is recorded. You will be able to watch this, and I will make the document available. I also want to introduce Andy and Candace, who are our account managers. They're in the chat, so maybe you guys can just post in there and say hello. I think Candace might be in a demo, but she'll be here later. If you're in the West Coast or Mountain, Andy is your account manager that you would reach out to for any help, any ideas, any strategies, or a demo if you don't have a store. And if you're East Coast, you'll reach out to Candace, or if you're Central Time. So just letting you guys know, those are who you would reach out to. Simple emails, it's their name plus @gethealthy.store. All right, so I'm going to share a document. And again, I do a full course on this, so I'm not going to get into all of the details here. I'm going to basically stay more high level. Sorry, I got to let somebody else in. Okay. And I want to make sure that you guys know what's available and understand the positioning of it as practitioners. So what I would recommend is go back and watch this video again, because there's going to be a lot of information. You're going to be taking notes, and I would suggest transfer the notes to the document then. That way, you know what the mechanisms of actions are in any notes that you take. So today, what I'm going to cover is topic solutions for blood sugar, but I'm also going to cover the pathway to blood sugar success very quickly. And then I'm going to go into what those pathways are, what the mechanism of action is, and then any notes that you want to take, you can. So you will have this document. So let's just start with what's going on in the industry right now. I did a really quick introduction to peptides for Get Healthy, and that video is going to be releasing out. Our marketing department has it, so keep an eye out for that, because it's just going to give you an idea. Peptides are all the rave right now. There's companies popping up everywhere. Blood sugar is on the rise. We see this happening in children. We see type 1 diabetes happening in the elderly. So where it used to be type 1 was known as juvenile diabetes, we're now seeing in an older population, and type 2 really was a dis-ease of the older population. Now we're seeing in that in kids. So obviously metabolically, we are messed up. And so if we look at how does the mechanism of metabolic health happen, it all starts in the gut. So that's where we're going to start today. There are things called L cells in the digestive system that actually promote the production of what are called incretins. Incretins are known as GLP-1, GIP, DPP-4, CKK, and PYY. So those are your incretins. Those are your communicators in your digestive system that tell your metabolic processes what to do. Now, each one of those does a different thing. That's not for this class. But what I will say is GLP-1s is what everybody's focusing on, and that is one incretin that is produced that controls metabolic function from the digestive system. It's not the only one. And we have to realize that there's more to this than just GLP-1, and there's much more to this than just insulin and glucose. So that's where I'm going to leave that. The gut health is essential when you're working with someone for blood sugar. I don't care if they're doing an injectable GLP-1 or GIP, or if they're not. Most people that get into metabolic dysfunction have digestive dysfunction, whether it's inflammation, whether it's L cell destruction, whether it's dysbiosis of the microbiome. And so you're seeing all these one-off solutions pop up. And I'm here to tell you that if we don't get control of this, we're going to do to supplements what we did, unfortunately, to essential oils, which is we don't have a supplement for that. We have a system for that. We have a process for that as practitioners. We have a program for that. But there's not a one-off solution that's going to fix your metabolic dysfunction. So that's what I want to get across today. Liver health. The liver produces a hormone called glucagon. That's going to determine how much glucose gets into your blood. Liver health is extremely important in your clients with blood sugar issues. Obviously, glucagon, that hormone, is going to tell the blood how much sugar is going to be dumped in there. That is going to directly correlate with how much insulin is produced. Now, Insulin is anabolic, which means it builds. It will build anything. It'll build your butt and make it bigger, or it'll build your muscles. So we have to remember what we're dealing with, that insulin is actually a good guy, but when he is out of control and responding to super high spikes of glucose dumping into the blood, then we're going to have issues with blood sugar and insulin sensitivity. So again, you got to look at liver health. The metabolic support is going to be crucial. I mean, obviously, we want to promote good GLP-1, GIP, DPP, CKK, and PYY productions. Those are called incretins. Again, it starts at the gut, but the downflow pathway is extremely important. Also, we have to look at other hormones. If you're just strictly looking at insulin and glucose, you're not going to balance anybody's metabolic pathway. You have to look at estrogen and the impact on GLP-1 and GIP. You have to look at leptin, ghrelin. You have to look at progesterone, cortisol. So if you are not savvy on other hormones, there will be a course that we're going to be talking about later that Get Healthy and I have kind of put together. It goes through my academy, but this is strictly about you getting the education and tools you need to be successful as a practitioner. So all of this to say, this is how you balance blood sugar. Now, we can also talk about adrenals. We can talk about lots of things, but this is just real high level. So on your Get Healthy store, you have solutions already. I will tell you that, peptides are available. We do have peptides for blood sugar balance. And there's two companies, actually, integrative peptides, which have been around for a very long time in longevity. So when you're looking at peptide mechanisms, again, as I talked high level before, we have to look at gut health, liver health, metabolic support for the incretin production, not just GLP-1, that's one incretin, there's several of them. And we also have to look at other hormones such as the endocrine hormones and the neurocrine hormones. So when you're looking at formulations, you want to look kind of globally at what is a comprehensive formula that I can use across the board. And so I'm actually going to be bouncing back and forth to these products on my store, but just know that they're in your catalog, and all of these can be added to your catalog in the Get Healthy store. So if you just tuned in, we went over high level, what is blood sugar, how is it balanced, and what are the mechanisms that we have to address. Second, what I will say is type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes are different mechanisms. They're different animals. Type 1 diabetes is the inability to produce insulin from the cells of the pancreas. That's a whole different mechanism than type 2 diabetes, which is high glucose in the blood and the inability to get it effectively into the cells. So very different. They shouldn't be categorized together. The only standard of care that is universal between them is nutrition when it pertains to deficiencies, gut health, liver health, and then the activity that you advise for them, such as strength training. Other than that, it's a different mechanism. People that are type 2 have a higher GLUT4 number, which is the receptor sites on the cells for glucose. People that are type 1 do better with fatty acids. If you ever look at a type 1 that's left untreated, they look like they came out of a starvation program. They're very lean, they deteriorate their muscle mass. So when I'm talking about these solutions, I'm going to be more towards type 2. They can be beneficial for type 1, but must be highly monitored. As your type 1s, they are a process of first starvation, and then they get insulin, and then they don't have the appetite control because they were used to eating everything they wanted and staying thin. And then all of a sudden they're eating everything they want and now they're not thin. So that's going to be more of looking at leptin and ghrelin impact on that type 1 pathway. Okay, so that's just a practitioner note for you. And what I've looked at as a practitioner when I'm looking at people that are diagnosed type 1 or type 2. So I'm going to jump into the first product called Ignite. And this is a peptide formula. Again, 2 peptide companies on your catalog, Integrated Peptides and Healthgevity. This is a product by Healthgevity. I am going to talk about one by Integrative. And I think this is a really unique metabolic booster because it has so many different things. Now, the DNF10 satiety peptide is a patented peptide derived from Saccharomyces cerevisiae. And this is a spore-forming probiotic that actually works within the GLP-1 pathway. Okay. You also have the L-biba. Now, L-biba is only produced in the body during strength training, and it's used within our body to promote glucose into the cells. So right off the bat, you have something for satiety, controlling leptin and ghrelin, and gut health and those incretin production. And you also have a formula that has something that's going to drive glucose into the cells on its own, just like it would happen without it. It also has berberine. Now, I'm going to talk about berberine a little bit later, but they use a dihydroberberine. And what I will say is if you're going to use berberine, use a dihydroberberine. That means it's already more bioavailable. For us practitioners, what that means is it's like B vitamins, right? There's folic acid, and then there's bioavailable folate. Very different when we're working with our clients. So this is kind of the same thing. I think you'll see a lot of berberines on the market. Your dihydroberberine is going to work a little bit better. What I will ask you is please stop saying berberine is nature's GLP-1. That it doesn't even work in the GLP-1 pathway. What it works on is the L cells of the digestive system, and it helps the digestive system produce more incretins, not just GLP-1, but GIP, DPP-4, CKK, and PYY. So I just want to make sure that, we are saying the right things and promoting the right things. I would use berberine for people that have a dysbiosis or a gut issue in conjunction with their metabolic process, which is everybody, which is pretty much all of us as well. We could all use some good berberine. And it does help people whose primary underlying root of their metabolic dysfunction is within gut. So I just wanted to point that out. There's also grains of paradise. They have the actoponin, which is an extract leaf that helps with hunger, and then the inoslim, which is an astragalus, also a ginseng. So this formula is awesome. It's going to help with satiety. It's going to help with driving the glucose into the cells. It's going to help with the incretin production. It's going to help with inflammatory response of the gut. So many cool things. All right, so next we're going to get into, let me just pull up integrative peptides because I want to show you their weight loss one, which is good. So I'm just going to stick with peptides first real quick. Since they're the whole rave out in the market, it is good to know your stuff on peptides and that there are natural peptides that you can use that will help with GLP-1, GIP, and DPP-4. Lots of good ones. So, and I'm going to leave this up because I'm going to come back to this for gut health as well. But they have a weight control one. Oh, can't wait. Here it is. Obviously, they call it like they see it, right? Perfect. Okay, so this Can't Wait by Integrative Peptides is actually a pretty interesting formula. It also has the DNF10, which again, we talked about as that proprietary matrix, and it also has Garcinia cambodia, which is known. They also do a D-ribose, which I think is interesting in this formula for mitochondrial biogenesis. So they're providing your body with energy for new and healthy cell production. So I really like this formula. Again, pick and choose. You're going to be looking at things for your patients like price point, this one is a little bit better. Also, you have to ask the question, like, is this person metabolically have an issue? Are they always having food noise in their head? That would be where you could just use this one. Or is this person have gut issues along with all that food noise and they're not getting glucose into the cells? So if they are a multifactorial issue when it comes to metabolic issues, I'd probably use the Ignite. If they are more streamlined with, hey, they're just having hunger cravings and they're having a hard time, getting glucose into the cells, I'd probably use the Can't Wait. So those are two ways that I would look at this. All right, moving into supplements. Nutriglutide is a great one by Nutritional Frontiers. This is a formulation, obviously, that's going to help with metabolic function. Their labels always tend to be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to pull up the ingredients down here and walk through it. Obviously, chromium We know that chromium is one of the nutrients that the receptor sites on the cells need to pull glucose within. Vanadium is the other one. We also talked about the fact that cortisol and other hormones might be impacting your metabolic function. So they do use a sensorol, which is an ashwagandha extract. That is going to help with modulating cortisol. And so I will give you kind of like Tracy's perfect protocol that I would suggest here at the end. They work on an inflammation pathway too with the capsicum, which is awesome. A lot of people do have systemic inflammation. They also have a little bit of issue with blood flow. So this is really good. And Casamax has a lot of studies on it with blood sugar. They also utilize a patented cinnamon water extract. We know that 500 milligrams of cinnamon is actually studied therapeutically for blood sugar balance. Here's your berberine, and it is in the dihydroxy fluoride, which is good. The other interesting thing is the L-theanine, and this is where they're hitting the neurocrine. They're calming the adrenal central nervous system, which if we think about metabolic dysfunction, it starts at the adrenals where there's a fight or flight, be it, poor food choices, stress response, food sensitivities, etc. So this is a cool little formula. So here's what I would do if I were me, and I am. I would probably do the Ignite or Can't Wait breakfast and dinner, one capsule, one capsule, one capsule. Okay, choose. I don't care which one you do. At dinner, I would do 2 capsules of nutraglutide. That's what I would do, because at night, I'm going to want to bring down that cortisol. So that's kind of my magic little protocol there. So Ignite or Can't Wait with breakfast and lunch, one capsule. And at night, I would do 2 nutraglutide with dinner. So usually people, unfortunately, are eating their heaviest meals at night. There are also people that have metabolic dysfunction tend to skyrocket cortisol at night, which is why they get a second wind, can't go to sleep, they're stinking thinking, they have all this stuff going on in their brain. So that's what I would do. All right. Another formula that I love for metabolic function is thermogenesis. And this one was actually really good because I take this personally in the morning, 3 capsules. So this did a few things for me. It cleared up my brain fog. It also gives me some energy. And for people that are trying to quit coffee or do a little bit better, it does have the green bean extract in it. That's going to be your EGCGs. Those are good for sirtuin pathway 6. That's all about controlling blood sugar. If you know about your sirtuin pathways 1 through 9, 6 is all about blood sugars. We got the raspberry ketones. We can thank Dr. Oz for making those famous for weight loss. We also have some African mango seed, which we know is great for metabolic function, the mulberry leaf extract. There's the Capsamax again, and the Garcinia cambogia. So I take this in the morning, 2 to 3 capsules. It doesn't matter if you take it with food or without. Really works well and gives me a clear head, gets me set for my workout. I just take it with my branched chain amino acids, my creatine as I'm going into the gym, and my greens. So good little formula to help with metabolic function. So if we're adding this to the protocol, this would be thermogenesis in the morning, Ignite or Can't Wait with breakfast and lunch, and then nutraglutide at dinner. All right, so another one is glucolyze. Now this is a better price point with a lot of nutrients that are all about getting glucose into the cells. So if you're working with someone with metabolic function, and you're seeing their insulin levels level out, their hormones are coming into check, but their glucose tends to run a little high. This can be a nice little one-off that you throw in there. And if you take a look at this whole panel, we got chromium, we got the cinnamon, we got the alpha lipoic acid, the B6, the L-taurine. I mean, all of these are directly studied for metabolic function with getting glucose into the cells. This has a vanadium in it. And these are tracks. You'll see tracks on a lot of labels. So if you're a practitioner, what that means is tracks is a chelated mineral source. It's a company patented source. And so, sorry, I had to turn that off. This means it's bound already and more bioavailable. So when you're looking at minerals, they should always be chelated minerals. So there's your EGCGs again. Lots of great things with these formulas. So if you need this as a one-off, you can take it in addition to the Ignite and or Can't Wait with breakfast and lunch. If you're seeing people wake up in the morning with high blood sugar, they're probably spiking cortisol all night, which is why you want to do the nutraglutide at dinner, because it's going to have that panel that's going to bring down cortisol. Second, I would add a little glucose right before bed, maybe a capsule or two, just to help balance them through the night. If they are going to have spikes of cortisol through the night, the glucose should be able to moderate that and get the sugar into the cells. Now, probably won't keep them from waking up, because if they're popping awake all night, that's adrenals, we know that. And it's probably cortisol spiking, but this may help with modulating that sugar. And over time, it should help it subside a little bit. All right, so very unique product that we just brought on. And I actually had to do some research and read all the studies on it. This is Sigrid, and this is a glucose stabilizer. Now, the difference here is if you look at the panel, they're using silicon dioxide. And this is a patented silicon dioxide called Cypor. Now, this Cypor, which is actually Cypor 21, it actually helps lower blood sugar, body weight, and the secondary cholesterol panel, which I'm going to talk to you about in a second, because poor little cholesterol, we're always trying to get him to go down when he's just trying to tell us something. But it uses this mesoporous silica particles, and it creates like a molecular sleeve that physically prevents the interaction between the digestive enzymes and the food. So it's actually almost like a medical device that people are taking. And what happens is it results obviously in a reduced food breakdown into these absorbable units. It's also, it keeps the blood sugar more stabilized because there isn't a lot of breakdown into glucose. Now, again, I would call this a strategic short-term solution. This is going to help your severe blood sugar patients and clients get control quickly, help them bring their blood sugar down. Now, if you know anything about gastric bypass, and I'm just going to tangent all over the place, because this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about is metabolic health, because it's done so wrong in our industry. When gastric bypass came out, the way they got it passed, I mean, obviously we look at it and they're bypassing the first part of the small intestine. So basically they shrink the stomach size, they bypass the first part of the small intestine, which is why it's called gastric bypass. What happened within the first 2 weeks of that surgery, without any weight loss, was all of the incretins of every patient that got gastric bypass balanced, and they were cured of type 2 diabetes. I mean, it was amazing just by keeping food from getting in that first part of the small intestine. Now, I'm not saying that's how this works, but what I'm saying is there is something to say about people with super poor eating habits that are coming into your office and saying, I need help right now. I'm going to try to make these changes, but my blood sugar is so high. And so gastric bypass got passed because of the results of the incretin balancing, which gave us a lot of research on GLP-1 and GIP. So what this particular product will do is keep the enzymes from breaking down the food. So these people that are making really poor food choices off the bat, and you can't get them into the mindset of like change everything to whole food, let's eat more protein, let's do all the things. This is a great therapeutic approach. For me personally, I wouldn't make it long-term, but I would make it strategic. So it's just a tool in your toolbox. It's a really unique formula. There's tons of studies on it. If you go to their website and you check them out or you add them to your store, lots of good information on this. And I think we're doing a webinar coming up with them pretty soon. But this is Sigrid, really cool glucose stabilizer. It's revolutionary. So I've never seen anything like it in the industry. It's going to be one of those wow supplements that hits the market. All right, what's left? Oh, okay. Let me go back to the document because I'm kind of all over the place and I feel bad for everybody here today. Let's go here. If I can find it. Okay. So what we talked about were peptides. We also have the one Can't Wait by integrative peptides. We talked about nutraglutide, thermogenesis, and Secret. All right. So I'm going to get into gut health a little bit. If you guys have to bounce, if it's past your time being here, this will be available. So please come back and watch it in the Get Healthy EDU. We try to make that available within the first 24 hours for you to go back, watch from the beginning, because I did give a lot of information on the pathway if you missed that part. So we talked about berberine and its activation of L cells. I am going to get back into peptides because peptides are amazing. And they can build bridges and they can very quickly come in and strategize with nutrients. Now, what I will say is they're not magic. And if you don't build a good foundation and support with complementary supplementation, such as a multivitamin, good gut health, liver support, et cetera, you're looking at the other hormones, they're not going to make a huge difference, but they will make a difference. So we talked about the whole industry in injectables. These are oral. And so these are available in your Get Healthy store to utilize. And so I just want to go into the store and look at that. And then we're going to talk about some specific GLP-1 probiotics done by Pendulum and their play in the market. And then we're going to bring in this whole protocol for you. Okay. All right, let me switch my screen share one more time. If you just jumped on, please mute yourself. All right, so this is a GLP-1 probiotic by Pendulum. And this is actually a pretty unique supplement because it does have a few things in here that I want to talk about. First of all, Clostridium, Akkermansia, and Bifidobacteria impetus. And so I'm going to go through each one of these. I'm just going to go through and mute you guys because I can hear you. All right, so first, the Clostridium, not sure what that was about. The Clostridium, obviously, a lot of people will look at that and be like, what is that? But Clostridium, Akkermansia, and Bifidobacterium are all about GLP-1 activation and methylation. Okay, so let's start right here with Bifidobacterium impetus. This is the probiotic that's passed from mom to baby when baby comes through the vaginal canal. Now, if you didn't have a vaginal birth or you were not born by a vaginal birth, then you are missing this. End of story. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. If you were born through a healthy vaginal birth, or if you had children that way, only 7% of moms pass this to their babies today. That's how metabolically dysfunctional we are. So you have to remember, metabolic is methylation, phosphorylation, acetylation. It's not just about weight loss. It's about the ability of the metabolic pathways to communicate paracrine, autocrine, endocrine, and neurocrine. So it's about how well your immune system communicates with all your cells and how it communicates with itself. Without this probiotic, your methylation is hindered from birth and up. So they've included it. There are other probiotic companies on our technology like ProTren that actually just has an isolate Bifidobacterium impetus, and it's the #1 probiotics I recommend to every single mother that's pregnant. And when the baby comes out, I tell mama, take that probiotic, put it on the breast if you're breastfeeding for that first time latch, or if you're bottle feeding, put it in the bottle. So really important as practitioners that we start getting this probiotic out to every newborn and every mama. So ProTren actually has one that's on your Get Healthy store. It's called Life Start. So if you go to your products category and you go to ProTren, just add the Life Start. That should be in your apothecary, recommending that out to every new mama and baby. Really important. All right, the Akkermansia and the Clostridium, they both work in the GLP-1 pathway. So it is going to help from the gut L cell production. So as berberine enhances the L cell production of GLP-1, the Akkermansia and Clostridium keep the microbiome healthy for the communication of GLP-1 to do what it's supposed to do. So everybody has a place in a space. So the chicory is just basically food for the probiotics, which is important because a lot of probiotics are starved to death by the time you get them. And it also helps with food cravings. So this is in there, and it can be part of your regimen of metabolic function. So people are waking up in the morning, taking the thermogenesis, doing Ignite, or can't wait with breakfast and lunch. And then they're doing the nutraglutide at night, 2 capsules. They're doing at bedtime a glucolyze if they need it. And you can throw the GLP-1 probiotic in at any time. So it looks like there's a question in the chat. Oh, I know, Andy. I'm sorry. Sorry, Andy. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so that's one. I'm going to go back to just acromantia. This is also an isolate that is here by Pendulum that you can just get on its own. A lot of studies in acromantia for GLP-1, just letting you know. And GLP-1 is not just about weight loss, okay? GLP-1, that incretin communication of what GLP-1s does, liver, brain, renal. I mean, there's studies on semaglutide injections in renal failure. So we have to also get out of the mindset that these products only apply to one thing of expression in the industry. They certainly don't. I use this personally, and I'm not making any claims. I use this personally with a little boy who has Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And his CK levels went from 26,000 to 13,000. So if you know anything about Duchenne's, it's a hard diagnosis. But just by enhancing his gut with this and GLP-1 pathway, we are seeing results. And I am working with his neurological practitioners, all of his medical practitioners. We're working in conjunction. I'm kind of doing the food part and the gut part and all those parts, and they're doing all the testing and things. So they're pretty amazed. I thought that was a pretty cool thing. All right, let's get back to the document. If you guys have any questions, just put them in the chat. I'll try to answer them. Okay. So talked about those. All right, devices for blood sugar. Again, you are looking at your clients and patients for success on stabilizing that glucose initially. Once you do that, you can stabilize the insulin. I mean, we can look at GLP-1 pathways for PCOS as well, which we know starts at an insulin glucose issue. So again, this is going to travel so many things, guys. Metabolic health just touches everything. It's why it's one of my favorites to talk about. And then obviously we can look at exercise. I know everybody was on here in the beginning, saw Nikki pop on. She and I do a lot of classes together on peptides and peptides for weight loss and all the things. And she's an IFBB pro bodybuilder and fitness model. And she has her own practice, and she's also a GetHealthy store holder. And for her, strength training is non-negotiable, especially for women. Listen up, ladies. When you hit 40, you should be prepping for menopause in your 20s and 30s. That's what you should be telling your younger clients. You should be strength training. I know Peloton's all the thing and cardio. You're just tanking your adrenals. And you know what? You can still run when you're 60, but you can't pick stuff up. That's what I will tell you. And you're probably at a high risk of falling. So at 2030, no one's thinking about the depletion of estrogen as you get older naturally and how that's going to impact muscle bellies. And it does directly. Additionally, strength training is the only way that you can get glucose into cells without insulin. So if you don't want people's glucose and insulin going all over the place, have them strength train. They will get glucose into the cells through that mechanism. And if you take an Ignite, it's even going to work more. Plus, muscle's medicine, right? It's part of our foundationals. We say movement, but we should say muscle. That's what we should say. So I'm actually changing my foundations to be nutrition, hydration, muscle instead of movement, which will get hard for me to say because I'm so used to saying movement. But it's not about movement. It's about the right movement for the individual. A lot of people in adrenal exhaustion, they're cardio addicts, ultra runners, marathon runners, women, especially like cardio. It's easy. They can walk in there, they can get on the treadmill, they feel accomplished. They see the little calorie burn. Calories are silly. It's a measure of heat. We shouldn't even be talking about calories. I mean, if we're all still talking about calories at this point in our education, we need to go back to school. A calorie is a unit of heat. Yes, your body thermogenically is going to increase temperature so that you can push metabolic processes. It's like your engine warming up in your car. It's not what makes the car go. It's what fuels the mechanism, the heat, which makes the oil more viscous and the gasoline and all the things that we utilize. So we have to start looking as muscle as medicine, and you got to start with strength training. You have to, absolutely. And then blood work. I'm not going to get into all this here because there's a ton of blood work that I personally run, but I do a baseline plus. That's a CBC with differential, a CMP, a total serum iron, lipid panel, D3, fasting insulin, full thyroid. For women, if it's a man, I'll do PSA and free testosterone. So I also recommend a diurnal cortisol at that point, because I think doing hormones with blood is okay, but cortisol in particular, I want a 4-point saliva cortisol. So when you watch the replay, you can pause with everything I said and write that down. But that's it. That's what I'm going to say today. So with all of that, all of these are available right now in your Get Healthy store, all of them. So you have Healthgevity, you have integrative peptides. There's no need to go to, and I don't mean any disrespect to MLMs or affiliates, but guys, if you're building somebody else's brand, you're pushing your people away from you. The point to the Get Healthy store is actually to keep people in your network so that they continually come back to you and support you, the ambassador. You have supplements on there. Now you know some of the mechanisms of them. You know, I think Sigrid's going to make a big play in the industry. I think they're going to revolutionize. They've actually been featured in Forbes magazine already. Like, there's a lot of research behind them. So get on their website, go start researching, add them to your store. Berberine, easy, right? Oh, I didn't get into these yet. I'm going to go back and do that. I totally tangented on you guys. I'm sorry. So gut health, super, super important. IgG, immunoglobulin, I think we're all pretty familiar with that. We've been using that for a while in the industry, but it is a peptide. Collagen is a peptide. So we have been using these, right? I'll get back to BPC. Devices, you know, CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, into the arm. There's a lot of companies out there. I can't think of them all, but I know Thea's one. So they are available. You can utilize a continuous glucose monitor. Finger sticks, you know, like Nikki was saying in the beginning, you can go to Amazon, you can go to the CVS, you can go to Rite Aid and pick these up. And get your people monitoring and just keeping a log of that. And it doesn't have to be all the time. I usually tell people for a week, do it consistently. Tell me where your glucose is when you wake up, you know, before you go to bed, 1 hour after, 30 minutes after meal, 1 hour and 2 hours, because those really matter. You know, you want to see if people are waking high, waking low. That tells you a lot about that. Strength training, and then of course, getting numbers, tangible numbers. And I am going to do my Beyond the Blood Work course here with Get Healthy. I think we're going to do that later, October, around that time. But that'll be available for everybody here. If you haven't taken it, you don't know how to read functional blood work, it's kind of like my thing, and I teach a course on it. So I'm just going to jump back real quick into BPC. I want to just take a minute and go into integrative peptides along with Healthgevity and talk about gut health. Again, gut health is key. You will not balance anything without balancing gut health. So the first one I want to talk about is BPC. Now, BPC 157 is an incredible peptide. Lots of studies on it for, you know, aiding in ulcerative colitis, diverticulitis, Crohn's disease. So if you have anybody with those extreme measures, hands down, one of the best things that you can give them is BPC. As you can see, Integrative has it in a capsule. It also has it in a spray. Super cool because, you know, these are tiny little capsules, so people don't have to worry about it. One of the things that I noticed with peptides is some of them have to be injected. They break down in the digestive system. So the BPC 157 with Healthgevity, what they did was they added SNAC to it. And SNAC actually is a protective intestinal protective mechanism that goes around the peptide. And what that does is it helps increase absorption. It protects the peptide from being broken down, because peptides come from protein into amino acids. Those amino acids get reconstructed into a peptide chain. So they will be susceptible to gastric juices and digestive processes. So you need something that's going to protect them. So your choice, these are a little bit bigger capsules. If you're dealing with kids, you might want to utilize a smaller, I mean, these are kind of tiny. I have these, they're very tiny. So that's what I like about integrated peptides. They're like tiny little peptides. So that's on there. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about is KPV. KPV is really overlooked in the industry, but it's incredibly beneficial for gut health because it's a antimicrobial, has been studied for SIBO and also has been studied for Candida overgrowth. And we know those things, microbials from parasites, Candida or SIBO, all can, affect gut health, can create inflammation, leaky gut, etc. And integrative peptides has an oral spray. Yeah, that's right. So this is actually pretty awesome. Also, little secret sauce, works great for thrush. Now, I wouldn't spray a whole unit into a baby's mouth, but I might do just a tiny drop and put it on the breast or on the bottle top, and let the baby do that once or twice. So really incredible. It's a bioregulator. So I really like KPV for Candida, SIBO, any type of microbial overgrowth of the digestive system. That's in oral spray. Healthgevity did KPV and BPC together. So this is available on your store. Where did it go? Hang on. I know it's on my store somewhere. Of course, everything's on my store, but let's not tell John that. I don't know where it went. But anyway, it's a KPV, BPC, and PEA. This is KPV and PEA. Now, PEA, just so you guys are aware, it works like SPMs. And SPMs are specialized pro-resolving mediators. PEA is a cannabinoid. So not a cannabis cannabinoid, but it's a phytocannabinoid. So it's in the neurotransmitters. It helps with pain, helps with any type of digestion. Again, you got the snack and all of these. There it is. There's the body protective compound. It's not on the label, but it's in the, okay, whatever. I got to talk to Michael about that. But anyway, BPC, KPV, and then the PEA combo, which is nice because it's the same price as just BPC alone. If you have somebody that has underlying Candida issues, parasites, SIBO, along with leaky gut, along with like digestive pain, gas, bloating, I would go with this. So very cool. But just know that there's, isolated one-offs that you can use as well. And last one that I want to talk about is Prime Gut. Now, Prime Gut is pretty unique because it also contains 1 gram of butyrate. So you have like inulin, right, which is a prebiotic. You have your probiotics, and then you have what are called postbiotics like butyrate. Another product for butyrate is Body Bio, and I'll show you that in a second. They have a sodium butyrate that's fabulous. What was I looking for? Oh yeah, Prime Gut. So Prime Gut, if we look at the ingredients panel here, it has the immunoglobulin G, immunoglobulin M, and then A, along with the bovine albumin. This is your core biome. This is your butyrate. And the tributyrin is just a more broken down, more digestible. Okay. And then you do have your Bacillus coagulans, subtilis, and clausii, along with estrogen. So it's going to be an immune formula for people that have issues with allergies, sensitivities, and people that say they get gassy and bloated after eating is usually a butyrate issue. So this Prime Gut, really awesome. It kind of just is an all-in-one thing. But let me go to Body Bio, which has become one of my favorite ones that I recommend, especially for people that have diagnosed SIBO. This works really well for them, really, really well. So I love this one. Super great price point for 100 capsules, just saying. And I tell people to take it at the end of the meal. So that's how I would probably tell you to take the Prime Gut as well, would be at the end of the meal. So, okay, now that's really it. Any questions? Is that helpful? I hope that was helpful. So you guys, I know that took a while, but you can go back and do the replay. If there's anybody that is interested in any of the courses, Get Healthy has links. You can reach out to marketing at gethealthy.store. There's also things that we'll be doing in the future on blood work. Watch for that introduction to peptides video that we just did. It'll be coming out. Going to be really great for you guys just to get a high level of like, what are peptides? How do they work? And then we'll be doing some deeper things on that as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, balancing blood sugar, and I hope it gave you kind of a system that you can implement. Don't forget to build your bundles. Don't forget to talk about metabolic health in the industry. There's a lot of people unsupported, out there that is doing, a lot of injectables, and nobody's looking at their gut health. Nobody's looking at their nutrition plan. No one's looking at their strength training. Nobody's looking at their other hormones, and they're just left out there all by themselves, wasting away. So when it comes to semaglutide, one of the things that we should be promoting in the industry is an exit strategy, right? It's like, hey, what's your exit strategy to semaglutide, and how can we step into the gap and support you? Because the damage is really in the dose, and the damage is really in the, I would say, the left alone atmosphere that these people can just get online and order anything they want for $99 a month, and then they're just out there. So start being kind of like a light out there and get people to understand metabolic health and blood sugar and the impact on everything. Cancer is metabolic, cardiovascular is metabolic, diabetes is metabolic. Like, this is not an isolated situation on weight. So if this program, if you'd put it in for someone who had cardiovascular disease, as much as somebody that had diagnosed cancer, it would still help the body enhance the metabolic pathway. It's not always about losing weight. It's about enhancing the pathways. And incretins are in everything. It's not just weight loss. So again, we're hyper-focused on it, but that's not the whole story. So, all right, guys, have a great, what day is this? Tuesday. And we'll see you next time on the roundtable.